Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Gita Satsang. Let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant this shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः रामानुजदया पात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकं यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्म व्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharya, let us go to our shlokas for today. So in the previous satsang, we had taken the first and second shloka of the 6th chapter. Today we will continue with the 3rd, 4th and 5th shlokas. So in the 3rd shloka, Krishna continues to explain more aspects about Karma Yoga, the yogi, and what are his characteristics to Arjuna. Arurukshor muner yogam कर्म कारणमुच्यते योगारूढस्य तस्यैव शमः कारणमुच्यते. For the sage, for the Muni, who is trying to climb up, who is seeking to ascend to the heights of yoga, action is the means by which they will reach to that height. But when one has reached the summit, when one has reached the goal, the final level of yoga, then quiescence, that is abstinence from action, not performing action, is the means for them to continue in that high state. So what is it that Krishna is explaining here? Now, we understand that there are two categories of people whom Krishna is talking about. First is those people who want to attain the goal. What is the goal? The goal is of Atma Sakshatkara, what is referred to as the height of yoga, the summit of yoga. That is nothing but Atma Sakshatkara. So there are people who are in the process of seeking that goal. They want to reach that goal. For them, there is a definite path which is prescribed, and that is to perform Karma Yoga. Now, here Krishna is explaining more in detail because when he has used this word Muni, right? He says, Arurukshor Muner Yogam. So when he's talking about Muni, like one may think or Arjuna may feel that Muni means what? Someone who is constantly engaged in dhyana, somebody who is constantly in meditation. That means maybe the person has given up all activities and they are only doing jnana yoga. That is what is the meaning of this word Muni. Arjuna may misunderstand like that. So Krishna is clarifying that although I'm using the word Muni, but the word I'm using as Muni to indicate that this is a person who is focused on his goal, who is focused on the Atma. In that sense, he has used this word Muni. And he does not mean to say that the Muni is somebody who is doing Jnana Yoga, somebody who has given up karma and doing Jnana Yoga. That is not what Krishna is telling here. He is telling that Muni means somebody who is using the path of Karma Yoga to attain focus on Atma Sakshatkara. So once such a Muni, such a yogi has reached the goal, this is the second category of people, those who have already reached that goal of Atma Sakshatkara. Then for those people, there is no need to do karma. They can give up karma. So that is what here Krishna is telling. In this shloka, if we see, for those who want to ascend to the height of yoga, for those who want to achieve Atma Sakshatkara, karma is the means. But once one has reached that level, once one has reached that goal of Atma Sakshatkara, then not doing karma is the method for them. They don't need to do anything more. So here the acharyas explain that this is like if we want to climb to a higher level, we are, let us say, on the floor, and we have kept a place which is at the higher level. Like say if we want to go to the temple, we can use steps to climb up to the temple, or if we want to climb to a higher surface, we use a ladder. But once we have reached that place and we don't intend to come back from there, then that ladder is no longer required. So in the same way, for someone who wants to attain Atma Sakshatkara, Karma Yoga is the ladder. But once they have reached and they have attained Atma Sakshatkara, then for them, they no longer need to do karma. So here, however, we may think that, okay, karma is not required. That is what Krishna is telling. So again, the acharyas are clarifying that although we are telling that karma is not any longer required for them, the focus of this shloka, what Krishna is telling, is on the fact that we must do karma to get Atma Sakshatkara. He is not so much focusing on giving up karma, because that is for the people who have already attained that level. Then what is it that ensures we are going to reach that Atma Sakshatkara? Doing the karma. And how we should do whatever karma we are doing, whether it is dana, it is yajna, it is puja, it is any kind of anushtana that we are performing. When we do all these karmas with the right spirit, what is that right spirit? Krishna has been telling us right from the second and third chapter onwards that we should do with the spirit that the Lord is the one who is doing it. He is getting it done through me. I am just an instrument in his hands. Whatever I am doing for the pleasure of the Lord. I don't want any particular outcome for myself. I am doing everything for the joy and pleasure of the Lord. When we do with that bhava, then one is said to have attained what is called as Samadarshana. Now, here the Acharya has explained to us that if we look in our Puranas, we have examples of many great bhaktas who attained Atma Sakshatkara. It may have been Vidura, it may have been Prahlada, it may have been Dhruva, and so many other examples are there. Now, all these great personalities who attained that ultimate goal of Atma Sakshatkara, is it that they did their actions and once they attained that they stopped doing everything? Did they go off into sannyasa? No, they continued living the life that they were living. In fact, Dhruva and Prahlada, they became kings of their kingdom and they continued to rule the kingdom. They continued doing administration and so on. Then what was it that changed for them? It is not that. So here when we say that somebody who has attained Atma Sakshatkara can give up karma, it is not that they have to stop doing the action. Rather, what Krishna is trying to say is that you may give up the thought that doing this karma will get me to Atma Sakshatkara. So, till we have yet to reach the goal, when we are on the journey, we have not yet reached Atma Sakshatkara, we do all the karmas that are prescribed. We do it with the right spirit to make it karma yoga. But we have this thought in our head that we are doing this karma yoga, and by doing this, we are going to get Atma Sakshatkara. So, that desire is there, that I will get Atma Sakshatkara by doing this karma yoga as the Lord has prescribed. So that much is there when we are on the journey. But once you have got to that state, Krishna is telling they can give up karma. What does he mean by saying they can give up karma? Is it that they give up doing the actions? Should they now stop doing everything? No, they should continue to do the actions. But what they don't have now, what they have given up once they attain Atma Sakshatkara, they have given up the idea that I have to do this karma yoga to get to Atma Sakshatkara. They have reached there already. So now they don't need to think about this. And they realize that even getting that Atma Sakshatkara is actually by the grace of the Lord. It is very wrong of us to think that we are going to do something and we will get Atma Sakshatkara because of that. Ultimately, whether to grant moksha to somebody or not is entirely dependent on the wish of the Lord. So it is not that just because I have followed certain things, just because I have done something on a particular path, I am going to get it. If that is the case, then everybody who does all sorts of sadhana, they should definitely get moksha, isn't it? But does that happen? It's only when the Lord decides and he wills that now this person should get moksha, then that person attains moksha. So even the thought that doing this karma yoga will give me atma sakshatkara, that thought also is given up by the one who has reached the height of atma sakshatkara. So that is what is the meaning of this shloka. So when we have this spirit, even if we are doing karma yoga thinking that it is going to get us this fruit of moksha, then still that desire, that is one desire we are hanging on to. And because of that, many times we may wonder and feel bad, and we may, be very much attached to the actions that we are doing. But if we are doing with the bhava that I am not doing this for anything, giving me moksha is the desire of the Lord, it is the will of the Lord, it is by His grace. If He has to give, He will give. My only duty is to keep on doing the karma in such a way that He gets joy by my action. When we do with that bhava, then we are able to do that karma very well, because now we are no longer attached to the outcome, and that brings joy to us. So, with this bhava, when we do the karma, then that karma yoga is really perfect and it gives joy to us. So, here again, the Vyakyatas explain that it is, we can understand this with the example of somebody who is studying something. When we are in school, when we are in college, we study certain subjects because it is in the course of study. It is told that we have to study this, and at the end of the year, there's going to be an exam. And when we study that portion and we know it will come in the exam, so we are studying for the sake of the exam. We are studying so that we can answer in the exam and get good marks, right? And at that point of time, although we may like the subject, still there is always that extra factor which is stressing us out, that we need to study this for the sake of the exam. So that time the studying may not always be joyful. But suppose there is somebody who has completed his course of study. Now he has started working somewhere, and out of his interest, he pursues some other topic to study for his own pleasure, right? Just for the sake of getting that knowledge. There is no outcome tied to that. Then that kind of studying, that kind of abhyasa gives a lot of joy to that person. Similarly, when we are doing karma, thinking that all this is going to take me to moksha, then that kind of attitude is still a burden on us. But if the yogi reaches that level of Atma Sakshatkara, then he stops doing karma. What is the meaning? That he stops not doing the action, he continues to do the action, but he gives up the thought that doing this action is going to get me to moksha. Then he is able to do just for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is what Krishna has explained in this third shloka. Now we move on to the fourth shloka. So here Krishna says, Yada hinendriyartheshu na karmasvanupshajyate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhastadochyate. When somebody loses all attachment, when somebody gives up completely the attachment for what? For the indriyas and to the works which are done, to the action and to the sense objects, then indeed it can be said that one has abandoned all desires. And such a person is considered to have reached the ultimate height of yoga. So, what is being explained here? In the previous shloka, we said Krishna is talking about two types of people. Somebody who is climbing the path to attain karma yoga, to attain Atma Sakshatkara. For that person, karma yoga is required. And there is someone who has attained the goal. For that person, no longer karma yoga is required. No longer karma is required. That means no longer the thought that he has to do that to get moksha. In this shloka, Krishna is explaining further about what are the characteristics of this person whom you can say, who can you claim that, okay, this person has achieved Atma Sakshatkara. How will we identify? What are the factors that have to be there in a person for us to say that they have attained the goal of Atma Sakshatkara? So here Krishna is saying there are three identifying factors. First, a karma yogi, that means the person is doing their action and doing it as an offering to the Lord without any involvement with the senses or the sensations produced by those senses. Now we know we have eyes to see, we have ears to hear, we have the tongue to taste, and so on. And the sensations which come, right? when the form that you are seeing with your eyes, the sound which you are hearing with your ears, the rasa which you are tasting with your tongue, all these. The karma yogi is someone who is not involved with any of these. They will do what has to be done, but they are not getting involved. They are not trying to do things to get enjoyment from these. So, first, the karma yogi has no involvement at all. He is not bothered about the sense organs, about the sense objects, about the sensations which are coming from the sense organs. Secondly, such a karma yogi does not do any karma to attain enjoyment. So, whatever action he does, he is doing it as an offering to the Lord. He is doing it as his sadhana. He is doing it with the idea that all this is a part of my duty towards the Lord. And if at all he has some kind of an idea, it is only that I am doing this for the pleasure of the Lord. He's not even thinking that it is for Atma Sakshatkara, right? So if he is not thinking that it is for Atma Sakshatkara, then where is the question of him thinking about enjoyment from the action? So he will not do anything which is for his personal enjoyment. He will do everything which is to do as the Shastras have prescribed for the pleasure of the Lord. Right? We've heard stories of, some kings who have been willing to even give up their life and willing to sacrifice so much. I think we know the story of Shibi Maharaj. Then we know the story of the king Ranti Deva, right? We know the story of Ambarisha. All these are examples of, great yogis who had reached the ultimate height. They were not wanting to do anything for their own enjoyment. They don't want to enjoy from their senses. That is the second feature of a karma yogi. And thirdly, the karma yogi has completely given up all kinds of desires. There are no bad desires, definitely. There are no good desires, also. There are absolutely no desires at all that such a person has. So, someone who is having these three features is said to be someone who has attained the goal of Atma Sakshatkara. Somebody who is not involved with the senses and the sensations, somebody who does not do any karma to get enjoyment for their own pleasure from the senses, and somebody who has totally given up all desires. See, we must understand the difference between the second point and the third point. When we are saying that karma yogi does not want to get enjoyment from the senses, it is the sense organs which are involved there. So he is not having anything to do with the sense organs. When we say that karma yogi has given up all desires, that means the mind also has been completely subdued, because the desire for enjoyment comes from the mind. The means to enjoy are the sense organs. So the karma yogi has given up everything. He is not involved with the senses. He's not involved with the sensations. He does not look and hanker for enjoyment from the senses. And his mind also is so much in his control that he has totally given up all desires. Now, in the next shloka, the fifth shloka, which is very famous and very important, Krishna is talking about this quality of the mind of the person who is at that high level. And he's telling how we should make use of our mind, for what we must use our mind. So in the fifth shloka of the sixth chapter, Krishna is saying, Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So he's saying, you should raise yourself. One should raise one's self. Self means the Atma. So how do we raise our Atma? How do we go to the level of Atma Sakshatkara? By using our mind. And what should be the use of this mind? We should not allow the Atma to sink down. And he's telling this is very important, because the mind only, this mind of ours, is the friend of the Atma, and this mind only can also become the adversary, the enemy of the Atma. So, what he's saying is, use your mind to raise your Atma to the higher level. Don't allow the Atma to sink. So, what he's saying, the mind is the friend who can raise the Atma, and the mind is the enemy who can pull down the Atma. This is explained to us in more detail by the Acharyas. So, how can this same Atma, we may think the Atma is the same, how can it push us up or push us down? How is it possible for that same Atma to do both the things? Here, what is the implied meaning of this is that if the Atma gets attached to worldly Vishayas, to Laukika Vishayas, then one is pushed down. If the Atma is detached from these worldly things, then one gets lifted up. Now, in normal life, what do we do? How do we classify people? We say some people are our friends, and we say some people are our enemies, right? We like our friends and we hate our enemies. So, what is it that we are using to classify someone as a friend or an enemy? Generally, somebody who does as our wish, somebody who is pleasant to us, somebody who does what we like, such a person we call them as our friend. Somebody who does what we don't like, somebody who is behaving in a way which causes trouble for us, which causes pain to us, we call them as enemy. So in worldly life, our vyakhya of who is friend, who is enemy is based on this. If it is something which is comfortable for me, the person is anukula for me, then we say they are our friend. If the person is pratikula towards me, then we say they are our enemy. In reality, the acharyas explain that what should we be doing? In reality, sorry, somebody who is doing something which is unpleasant for us is actually making us get detached from this samsara. So, such a person whom we are calling as enemy, actually, that person is our friend. We have always noticed that when we have some kind of suffering, we have some kind of dukkha, unhappiness, and pain in our life, then we start to question, why am I so attached to this? Why is it that this object or this person or this relationship is important for me? And then we think, oh, there is nobody in this world who is mine. There is nothing in this world which actually belongs to me. Nothing in this world is in my control. And so on. We get these thoughts not when we are happy. When we are in the prime of happiness, something very good happened in my life. Somebody praises me. Somebody appreciates me. I get a promotion. I have all good things coming my way. Then we don't get these thoughts at that time, isn't it? Right in the middle of all our happiness, do we ever think that, oh, why all this? This is not for my good. I should go away from this. No, we get more and more attached and pulled into that samsara, isn't it? But when we suffer dukkha, when we undergo suffering, then at that point of time, it is easier for us to get detached. So actually, the people whom we are calling as enemies are actually our friends. They are the ones who are actually doing good to us, because when bad things happen to us, we learn to give up attachment little by little. We get detached from this samsara and we learn to attach ourselves to the lotus feet of the Lord. So that should be our vyakhya actually. We have got it all wrong. We say somebody who is doing good to me is my friend, but actually somebody who is doing bad to me is actually my friend, because that pain which is caused to me helps me to get detached from samsara. So, taking this analogy, what we need to understand is, if our mind behaves in such a way that it is leading us to get detached from this world, then that mind becomes our friend. But if the mind leads me to get attached to this world, then it is the enemy. So we must understand this concept and realize that this mind which is always dwelling within us, this mind which is always jumping up and down and making us react in different ways to situations, that mind itself is capable of either uplifting our Atma or pushing down our Atma. It can make us climb up to the higher level, or it can push us to the lowest level. So, understanding this is critical if we want to know how to continue further on the path of yoga. Now, what exactly is the role of this mind? How it is a friend, how it is the enemy? That Krishna will explain more in detail in the next shloka. That also is a very famous shloka. We will take that up in the next satsang. But for today, let us try and remember these things which have been told. That what should be the bhava of someone who has reached Atma Sakshatkara. Okay, we have not reached there. We are still on the path. So what should be our bhava? That we should keep doing whatever karma as karma yoga. We should do it with the right spirit. We should do it for the pleasure of the Lord and realize that one day we will get to that stage where we are not affected by all these things. We are not affected by our senses. We are not affected by our desires. That is the ultimate goal. And if we want to get to that place, we must make efforts from wherever we are right now. And for that, this mind, which can become our enemy, we should actually convert it into a friend. If our mind is acting with attachment, it is behaving like an enemy. If our mind gets detached, it is our biggest friend. So we must try and cultivate slowly, little by little, detachment in certain things. Why should we wait for pain to come and then we will get detached? Right? It is very difficult, no doubt. But even when nothing is going wrong for us, little by little, we must learn to detach ourselves from these worldly things, from the people around us, from the posts and positions that we hold. We must learn to try and focus our attention, focus our mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. If you remember in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is told that at the very beginning of the Bhagavata, it is there. Kunti's prayers are there, where Kunti is praying to Krishna that, oh Krishna, keep me in trouble always, because then my mind will be focused on you. Where do you think that prayer is coming from? It is from an understanding of this concept that when we are in trouble, our mind flies to the Lord. But when we are in enjoyment, when we are in joy, at that time we don't remember God. They say, no, in Kannada, Sankata Bandaga Venkataramana. That is our bhava. Always we are like that. And when trouble comes, then we run to the Lord. But if we keep sticking to the Lord at all times, even when we are having a good time, even when our punya is giving us good experiences, even at that time, if we are able to hang on to the Lord, then that same Lord has the capacity to reduce our prarabdha, to make sure that we don't go towards any negative, situations. So, but to think that we should pray to the Lord so that we don't get negative in our life, that is not the right spirit either. We must understand that whatever is happening in our life happens because of our karma. Whatever we have done past janmas actions, our papa punya, we are settling accounts here. And all we need to do is we need to feel grateful that we have understood the importance of bhakti. So whatever comes in my life, whether it is, if it is a joyful situation, I will not jump up too much. I will not get too much attached to that. I will not get, thrown into the very heights of enjoyment. If dukkha comes in my life, I will not be getting dumped into the very lowest depths of that. Rather, I must try to be in the state of sama, the level of being equanimous. That should be my goal. So, when joy comes, we must tell ourselves, when we are feeling very happy for something, we must tell ourselves that this has come by the grace of the Lord. This has come because the God has blessed me with this. So, there also we must remember and focus our attention on the Lord only and be thankful that, oh Lord, it is by your grace that I have got this. And oh Lord, you protect me that I don't get carried away with this and get lost somewhere in this samsara, that I don't get attached more and more. You take care of me. We should pray like that to God. And when difficulties come, we must understand, we must say, oh Lord, you have given me this. This has come to me because of my papa karmas. Oh Lord, you be with me at all these times. Let me know, let me remember that you are there with me. Let me remember that the purpose of this life is to get rid of all this account. And let me not lose faith on you. Let me not lose my bhakti. Let me not forget to remember you. Like that, we should be aware now that we know from this shloka that it is our mind only which is our friend, our mind only which is our enemy. Then we must make sure that we keep that mind always with this awareness that I want to make my mind into my friend. I don't want it to become my enemy. So, whatever is going to lead me towards detachment from samsara, that is when my mind is a friend. So, let us try to cultivate those kind of thoughts in our mind. Even in the outside world, let us have association with people who are willing to tell us what our mistakes are, who are willing to, point out our faults to us, rather than somebody who is only all the time appreciating me and, praising me. Many times in this world, people give false praise also. So we are not able to distinguish that. We just get carried away thinking, oh, they are praising me. Oh, I am so good. Already we are all caught up in our own ego and ahankara and thinking that we are very great. If we have more people around us who are telling us all the time how great we are, then we become even more, lost in that ahankara. So we must not have those kind of thoughts. Okay, still somebody is bent on praising you. Then you offer all that to the Lord and say that, oh Lord, this is all grace, this glory which is being sung is your glory only. Offer it to the Lord, offer it to your Guru, offer it to your Acharya. When they are praising me, they are actually praising my Acharya. When they are praising me, they are actually praising God. Because it is only by the grace of the Lord and of Acharya that I am like this. This should be our bhava when people praise us. And when people put us down, when people say insulting things to us, or when people hurt us by their words, then we should think it is good. God is giving me reminders that none of this is real. It is good. I am also not so great. I am also a papi only. I also have lot of things which I have done wrong. I have lot of improvements to make. So let it be. God bless these people who have, shown me the truth. May God be good to these people. Let them be blessed because they have shown me the right way to go ahead. They have taught me something which I can use for my improvement. Now I know what my faults are. I will try and work on those and improve those. So when we do with that bhava, then our mind becomes our friend. Otherwise, our mind tries to tell us that, see, you are so great, you are so good. And then these people are simply pulling you down. They don't understand your value. We think all these things. But instead of we think the other way, then that mind becomes our friend. So let us be constantly aware of how the mind, our mind only, can be our friend or it can be our enemy. Let us be alert in all those situations when it is trying to behave like the enemy. Let us prevent it from acting like an enemy. Let us harness the power of our mind where it behaves like a friend of ours and use that to progress on our path. Let us pray. Let us offer Kritagnyata to the Lord, to the Guru, for inspiring us to join this satsang, to be able to understand all these things. Let us offer gratitude to the Acharyas for explaining all these concepts in such clear and simple terms that even people like us with this Manda Buddhi, we are able to understand all these things. And somewhere we can make an effort. Although we may be today only intellectually understanding, but if we constantly try to keep ourselves aware of these things and remind ourselves about these things, then we will be able to practice it further in our life. For that also we need the Lord's grace, we need the Guru's grace. Let them all bless us and give their grace always on us. Thank you everybody for joining in. We will meet again next Friday and we will take up the next few shlokas. Namaskar. Thank you everyone.